My father, Elias Vance, was the greatest architect of his generation. His firm, Vance and Stone, built the skyline of this city. His magnum opus, the towering glass and steel monolith known simply as the Pinnacle, is our city's pride. But 3 months ago, my father took his own life, or so the police report claimed. They found him at the firm's office, a single devastating note left behind, citing financial ruin and professional failure. The immediate consequence was a meeting with his partner, Victor Stone. Victor, a man who always stood in my father's shadow, was now the sole heir to the firm, claiming the financial ruin meant the firm's assets barely covered its debts. He offered me, his only daughter, Amelia, a $100,000 settlement to sign away my rights to my father's half of the firm. "It's a tragedy, Amelia," Victor said, his eyes dry. "But Elias left nothing. Take the money and start fresh. It's all I can legally offer." $100,000 for the legacy of the man who designed half this city. It was an insult. But what truly set my teeth on edge wasn't the small sum. It was the lie in his eyes. My father, Elias Vance, did not fail. He was meticulous, successful, and financially brilliant. The failure was a story Victor was selling. I refused to sign. I knew Victor had stolen my father's firm, but I had no proof. All I had was a deep, aching certainty that my father's death was tied to the very building he had built, the Pinnacle. Before we dive any deeper into the betrayal and the secrets hidden in the blueprints, I need to know you're with me on this journey. This story is the most intricate tale of betrayal I've ever shared, and it needs your support. Right now, pause the video and hit that like button if you believe my father was murdered, not bankrupt. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the moment Victor Stone finally pays for what he did. And leave a comment. Tell me, what's the one thing you would never forgive a family friend for stealing? Knowing your thoughts fuels this investigation. Now let's keep digging. I started with the only thing Victor couldn't steal, my father's private storage unit. Inside, it wasn't old awards or sketches. It was one single massive roll of blueprints, marked simply Pinnacle, Final As-Built, version 7. I, an art historian with no architectural background, spent the next month teaching myself how to read those complicated drawings. Most of the plans were standard, but one section was highlighted repeatedly in my father's spidery red ink. The sub-foundation utility tunnel that ran beneath the entire structure. It was an access point, a simple, sealed-off area beneath the main structural pilings. My father had written one word next to it: stone. I contacted a trusted structural engineer who owed my father an old favor. I showed him the final blueprint. He was confused. "Amelia, this tunnel is unusual. It's a massive, unused utility space. Your father insisted on it being built even though it was unnecessary. It adds huge cost. And look here," he pointed to a corner. "This whole section is supposed to be sealed with a specific custom-poured concrete mix. It's virtually impenetrable." My suspicion crystallized. The massive, beautiful Pinnacle building was more than just an architectural marvel. It was a safe deposit box. My father had built an impenetrable vault into the foundation, and the sealed-off space was the key. I was certain that whatever Victor Stone had stolen, the financial ruin he claimed, was hidden inside. I filed a formal petition to the court demanding an audit of Vance and Stone's finances, citing my right as an heir to challenge the settlement. Victor's reaction was swift and brutal. His lawyers filed a countersuit, demanding I stop my harassment and accept the settlement, all while painting my father as a gambling addict who had recklessly driven the firm into the ground. Victor himself called me, his voice a dangerous monotone. "Amelia, stop this. You're disgracing your father's memory. Sign the papers and disappear. I will make sure the media knows you are chasing ghosts." It was a perfect legal trap. Victor was betting that my lack of financial proof and my mounting legal bills would force me to take the $100,000 and run. He had the firm, the lawyers, and the public narrative. I had one roll of blueprints and a gut feeling. I had to find out what was in that tunnel, but the only legal way to access the Pinnacle's sub-foundation was through a structural integrity inspection, and that required proof of a building flaw. I didn't have proof of a flaw. I had proof of a secret. The only way to win was to expose a structural danger that Victor couldn't ignore. This was where the $50 million truth was buried. I knew my father was meticulous. If he built the vault, he wouldn't compromise the structure. But what if Victor had compromised the structure after the vault was sealed? I found the original environmental impact report for the Pinnacle. The ground beneath the foundation was susceptible to microseismic activity, a slight, constant vibration. My father's initial, much more expensive design had included a seismic dampening layer throughout the subfoundation. But the final as-built blueprint I had, version 7, showed that the dampening layer stopped abruptly at the entrance to the sealed utility tunnel. It was a slight, almost invisible omission. I found the minutes from an old board meeting where my father had battled with Victor over budget cuts. My father had insisted on the dampening layer throughout. Victor had pushed for the cheaper, partial installation to save $5 million. My father had lost the vote. The omission wasn't a flaw in my father's design. It was a fatal flaw in Victor's greed. The constant microseismic vibration would be causing subtle, long-term degradation precisely where the utility tunnel met the main foundation pilings. It was a structural time bomb. I had the proof of a building flaw. It was enough to force an inspection. I filed an emergency motion with the city's structural review board, citing the specific omission and the risk of long-term structural fatigue. I bypassed the firm and went straight to the city's chief structural officer. The city, terrified of a major structural issue in their tallest building, immediately issued an emergency order. A full, deep-level structural inspection of the Pinnacle's foundation was mandated, effective immediately. Victor Stone was served the order while meeting with his lenders. His fury was palpable. He called me screaming, "You've gone too far, Amelia. You're trying to bankrupt the firm with a spurious safety claim. I'll ruin you." The structural integrity of a 100-story building is not spurious, Victor. You cut a corner to save $5 million. Now you'll pay the price. I didn't tell him I knew about the vault. I let him think I was only interested in the structural flaw. He ordered his firm to cooperate, believing they could hide the omission with quick cosmetic fixes before the city team arrived. Victor thinks he can fix the flaw and stop the city inspection, but he has no idea what I'm truly after. We are literally about to breach the foundation of the city's tallest building to find the secret my father died protecting. But what if the vault is empty? What if Victor moved the evidence? If you're still watching, you're officially part of the investigation. This is the critical moment. Click the bell notification so you get the alert the second I release the sequel detailing the legal fallout. Also, share this video with one person who loves a good high-stakes legal drama. We need more eyes on Victor Stone. And don't forget to tell me in the comments now, what do you think is inside that sealed tunnel? Money, documents, or something much darker? Hang on, the inspection starts right now. The city's structural team, accompanied by my engineer and I, descended into the sub-foundation. Victor's team was scrambling, trying to distract the city officials. The city engineer immediately confirmed the omission of the seismic dampening layer, marking Victor's firm for a massive fine and remedial action. This was my leverage. But the objective was the vault. While the city team was distracted by Victor's lawyers, I directed my engineer to the specific corner marked in red on my father's blueprint, the custom-sealed section of the utility tunnel. "This area is outside the scope of the structural flaw," Victor's lawyer protested. "It's a mandatory utility access point," I countered, presenting a city code I had memorized. "It needs to be verified for compliance."
Under legal duress, Victor's team was forced to agree to a minor excavation. They expected concrete and utility conduits. What they found was a seamless, custom-poured wall of high-density polymer concrete, the specific mix my father had noted. It was the vault's outer seal. I pointed to a microscopic seam along the edge, visible only because I knew where to look. There's an opening mechanism here. This is not a wall. It's a door. The city engineer, intrigued, ordered the team to use ground-penetrating radar. The radar confirmed a hollow space behind the seal, a massive, custom-built room. Victor Stone watched from a distance, his face turning the color of ash.
The seal was bypassed, and the vault door swung open. The room was pristine, dehumidified and air-conditioned. It was designed to preserve documents for decades. Inside, there was no cash, no gold. There were dozens of climate-controlled storage boxes and one single, heavy, leather-bound ledger on a table in the center. Victor's lawyer made a move, but the city engineer, realizing they had stumbled onto something far bigger than a structural flaw, secured the area and called the police. I walked straight to the leather-bound ledger. My father's precise script was on the cover. Vance and Stone, the true ledger. Inside, it wasn't a standard accounting log. It was a meticulous, handwritten record spanning 20 years, detailing how Victor Stone had been systematically diverting $50 million in firm profits into offshore shell corporations, hiding the money as discretionary R&D costs. The last entry was dated 2 days before my father's alleged suicide. Victor's ultimatum: sign the final documents or he releases the fraud ledger, destroying my career and the firm. He believes I have no proof. He is wrong. The true ledger is secured. I will not compromise my name. I will find a solution. The ledger proved 2 things. Victor stole $50 million and he had blackmailed my father. The suicide note was likely written under duress, forcing my father to take the blame for the financial ruin, while Victor took the firm. I had the proof of the fraud, but I didn't have the proof of murder. As the police secured the ledger, I noticed one final small item tucked beneath the table, a micro cassette recorder labeled Final Message. The police opened the machine and pressed play. The room fell silent. Sound of my father's strained, quiet voice. If you are listening to this, Victor has betrayed me. He believes I signed the papers. I didn't. The true ledger is safe. I will not let him release his false ledger and ruin the firm's reputation. I'm going to the roof to confront him now, before he leaves the office. I pray he shows a sliver of decency, but I doubt it. If anything happens to me, Amelia, my light, know that Victor Stone is a criminal, and the firm's future is yours. Sound of a door opening and closing, then silence. The recording confirmed the fraud and the confrontation. It didn't prove Victor physically pushed him, but it placed my father and Victor at the scene moments before my father's death. The police immediately placed Victor Stone under emergency arrest for questioning related to fraud and wrongful death. The entire facade of the $100,000 settlement collapsed. I had found the $50 million, and I had exposed the ultimate betrayal. The true ledger is secured. Victor Stone is in police custody, but the audio file doesn't prove murder. It only proves motive and confrontation. Victor's lawyers are already planning his defense. They will claim my father took his own life out of guilt after their confrontation. We are not done. If you are as outraged as I am, now is the time to commit to seeing Victor face true justice. Hit that subscribe button. Your support is the only thing keeping the pressure on the police investigation. Drop a comment right now and tell me, what is the next key piece of evidence Amelia needs to find to prove Victor pushed her father? Let me know what you think is missing. Now let's track that $50 million.
With the true ledger as evidence, the court quickly granted me emergency oversight of Vance and Stone. The firm was now technically mine, but Victor's shadow still loomed large. The firm's reputation was in tatters, and the $50 million Victor had stolen was locked away in untraceable offshore accounts. I was the CEO of a bankrupt, disgraced shell of a company. I contacted a fierce forensic accountant specializing in asset seizure. Her name was Rena, and she was a genius. Rena quickly confirmed the complexity of the shell corporations. Amelia, the money is gone. Victor moved it through 5 different jurisdictions. It will take years of litigation to recover $50 million. He may spend a few years in jail for fraud, but he'll keep his money. I refused to accept that. Victor had to lose his fortune and his freedom. We focused on the source of the money. The $50 million wasn't just profit, it was unpaid tax. I instructed Rena to create a detailed, certified report of the 20 years of tax evasion based on the true ledger. I didn't sue Victor. I gave the certified tax evasion report directly to the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS. I had learned from previous stories, like the Alex Thorne saga, if you've been following along, that the tax authority is the most powerful, least sentimental weapon in financial warfare. The IRS immediately launched a massive criminal investigation into Victor Stone. The civil lawsuit was dropped. This was now a federal offense. The IRS didn't care about my father's firm. They cared about $50 million in back taxes, interest, and penalties, which could easily double the amount owed. The criminal charges and the sheer magnitude of the debt were enough to force Victor's offshore banks to freeze his accounts pending the international tax investigation. The $50 million was locked down. Victor lost his money the moment the IRS got involved. Victor, trapped in a foreign jail after a failed attempt to flee the country, contacted me, begging for a deal. Amelia, you win. I'll sign the firm over. Just call off the IRS. I'll give you $10 million clean. The IRS doesn't negotiate with me, Victor, I said, cold and clinical. But I have a better deal. You will transfer 100% of your ownership in Vance and Stone to me immediately. In exchange, I will only agree to provide a single sworn statement to the authorities. I will testify that I found no evidence that the firm itself was involved in the tax evasion. I will claim the firm was merely a conduit for your personal fraud. This was the masterstroke. By protecting the firm's legal entity, I saved its reputation and ensured it was eligible to win new contracts. Victor, desperate to avoid a life sentence for corporate tax fraud, agreed immediately. I now owned the entire firm, Vance and Stone, free and clear. I had the firm, and he had nothing but a massive pending tax bill and a jail cell. I immediately restructured the firm, rebranding it as Vance Architects. I dedicated the first year to securing its financial health and purging every vestige of Victor's corruption. I used my ownership of the Pinnacle to turn the foundation into a symbol of transparency. I hired the original structural engineer to permanently repair the seismic dampening layer, Victor's original cost-cutting flaw, and publicly documented every step of the ethical cleanup. The $50 million remains frozen, now a subject of an international civil asset recovery suit led by the IRS. It will likely go to the government, but the firm is clean. Then, the police, working with the information from the audio recording, discovered the final truth about my father's death. They found a specific piece of evidence on the roof, a scratch mark on the railing, and a tiny fiber from Victor's expensive suit jacket. The police determined that my father had indeed gone to the roof to confront Victor. During a desperate struggle over the phone, as my father was trying to call the police, Victor had tried to grab the phone. In the ensuing struggle, Victor had physically shoved my father, who lost his balance and fell. It wasn't premeditated murder. It was involuntary manslaughter during a confrontation over the firm's integrity. Victor Stone was charged with both aggravated tax fraud and involuntary manslaughter. Justice was finally served on every front. I reclaimed my father's legacy, built on integrity, and now unburdened by Victor's greed. The final quiet resolution came when I finally took the original Pinnacle Final as Built version 7 blueprint and framed it in my new office, the CEO's office. I noticed a final, almost invisible marking on the blueprint near the final vault. It was a single, tiny word, written not in my father's hand, but in my mother's hand, dated years ago. Protect. My mother, who had been my father's silent partner, must have known about the true ledger and helped him hide it. The vault, the blueprint, the subtle omission, it was their final collaboration. My fight was not just for my father, it was for the legacy of integrity they both cherished. I am Amelia Vance. I didn't inherit a fortune. I inherited a firm built on a lie, and I chose to destroy the lie to save the firm. I used my emotional conviction and a single blueprint to expose the deepest corporate fraud in our city's history. The Pinnacle stands, but now it stands for the truth. The war is over. Victor is facing justice. My father's name is cleared, and Vance Architects is a symbol of ethical design. If this story of financial warfare, hidden blueprints, and ultimate justice resonated with you, I need you to do 3 things right now before you click away. Hit that final like button. Every like on this video helps share the story of integrity and exposes the true cost of corporate greed. Subscribe and hit the bell. My journey ends here, but I have dozens of similar stories of vengeance and justice coming next week that you absolutely won't want to miss. Final comment: tell me what Amelia should design next. A building dedicated to justice or a school for architects?